Hello everyone and welcome. Today, October 4th, is the third day of the Winning is Possible challenge. The most relevant event is that we are going to incorporate the three-level method into the challenge. I want to make it clear to you that the professional management of sports betting can be applied to any other methodology. But the important thing is that before using it, it must be tested and integrated into the knowledge, techniques, and tools, and confirm that it really works. Remember that on days 1 and 2, we apply the Emperor method. A total of 36 bets were made and all were won. That is to say, 0 lost bets. The total winnings were 60-75. But at this point, there is something that becomes very noticeable. Of those 36 bets, 35 were tested using past results, and only 1 was made in the present, whose result is pending. And in that case, a positive result was also obtained. The only reason we tested it in the past was to describe step by step the procedures we had to apply, so that from there, each one of you would be trained to put to the test independently and confirm for themselves that the method works. On this day number 3, as we already said, we are going to apply the three-level method in 30 bets that will be made in real time. All in the NBA, whose preseason is starting on October 4th. Our goal is to teach how to earn more than 400% each year. So, to overcome this challenge with an initial balance of $234,043, we must achieve minimum profits of $936,172. Now, I want to share information that I consider important. This challenge started in the month of September, specifically on the 3rd day of that month. It was the first day of the challenge. And several days later, on Sunday the 15th, it was presented 2nd day. The reason why they skipped 12 days and the challenge was not presented on consecutive days is that the regular season of the MLB ends in the month of September. And since we were applying the Emperor method, we had to wait the start of the next season of the league. Because as we said before, this method is not applied even in the postseason, nor in the preseason. So we had to wait until this month of October, where on the 4th the NBA preseason begins, to start applying the 3 levels method, which is indeed applied both in the preseason as well as in the postseason. And in this way continue with our challenge. Winning is possible until we overcome the challenge of achieving minimum profits of $936,172. Having clarified this point, now we can continue explaining that between both methods there are characteristics and qualities of similarities and differences that we will see next. Among the main similarities, we have these 6. The first is that both methods are applied to consistently obtain good results in markets where there is volatility that interacts with binary results, or composed of 2 elements. That is to say, where there are only 2 possible outcomes. 2 examples of this are the win betting modalities, lose and over/under. The second is that both methods originated thanks to the study of result patterns in sports betting. So the streak is its base and main component. The third is that when the first play is lost, the bet is not lost because it is linked to another future play. The number of plays it is linked to is determined by the scope of its capital distribution table. The fourth is that partial wins and losses of open or ongoing bets will be kept in yellow and not ADA, nor are they subtracted from the field of accumulated winnings in the overall results table. The fifth is that only winnings are added to the general table when the ADAPT has been won, or subtracted when the ADAPT has been lost, upon reaching the limit of opportunities established by its respective scope. And the sixth and final similarity is that, in both methods, the success of the results is measured in the medium term. Note for making a measurement: all the bets that are open at that moment must be closed. And among the main differences, the following can be found. The first is that, to apply an entry using the Emperor method, one must wait for a concordance to be created, while with the three-level method, it's not necessary to wait to play. The second difference is that the Emperor method has a range of 11 positions that represent 11 opportunities to make a correct play and win the bet, while the three-level method has a different scope, although that information is not available. The third difference is that in the Emperor method, when a play is successful, the ADAPT is won. However, in the three-level method, it is not always like this, since sometimes one might need to successfully make several plays to win the ADAPT, although the exact number of plays is not available. The fourth and final difference is that the Emperor method, it only applies in the regular seasons, unlike the three-level method. That can be applied from the preseason to the postseason. And that is precisely what we are going to do in the NBA preseason, which is starting on October 4th. We are going to start applying the three levels method. As you will see, that day there are only two matchups. In the first matchup, we have decided to apply the method to the Denver team, and in the second matchup to the Minnesota team. Now again, something you should keep in mind is that the team we choose, we can apply both the ATS betting method as well as the over or under betting method. This means that in each matchup we can make two bets. So in the first matchup, in the first play, we could bet that the team we chose wins or loses, according to what the method indicates. And in the second play, betting on whether it goes over or under. In that same matchup, in the same way, in the second matchup we could do the same, betting on the team we chose wins or loses in the ATS format, and that the over or under occurs in that same matchup. Let's do it then. The first for professionally managed sports bets. Applying the three-level method. According to the instructions of the method, in the first matchup, we must bet that the team we chose loses. That is going to be our first ADAPT. Besides, we must bet that the under will hit in that match. Play that will be our second ADAPT. In our third ADAPT, we're going to bet on the team we chose wins in the second matchup, and that the over will also hit in that match. Play that would represent our fourth sports bet. Professionally managed. Applying the three-level method. Now, in a direct manner, I present to you the table model that we are going to use to record the bets and their results when we use the three-level method. So on day 3 of the challenge, we are making for bets in 2 matchups that will take place on October 4th in the NBA. Notice that at the top left side, we have the amount that represents our initial balance. And we have also recorded the first for bets, just as they were done in the previous table. I am going to proceed to explain some important things to you regarding this table that you should know. First, notice that in the first ADAPT, you can see that Denver is written in yellow. We do this to identify the team in the matchup to which we are applying the method. The instruction of the method was to bet that Denver loses. To follow this instruction, we must bet that Boston wins. And as you can see, that's what we did. Just like we did with the Emperor method. The color of the status of the open bet numbers. It will be yellow. And we will only change it to green when the ADAPT is won, or to red when the ADAPT is lost, because it has been completely lost. That is to say, when the initial capital has been completely burned. In this red field, we are going to accumulate the losses that are generated from the open bets. Something important to highlight is that the entry amount for the first play will always be 20. Notice that we have a field to record the difference in the betting mode of handicap, or ATS, and another field to record the variable that will determine whether there will be a rise or a fall. We can also record the date of the next game that the team will carry out, to which we are applying the method. Well, that's it for now. I believe we have explained enough to continue. Let's continue then with the second ADAPT, in that same matchup between Boston and Denver, where we bet that the under would happen. In the third ADAPT, we bet that Minnesota would win. And in the fourth ADAPT, in that same matchup, that the over would happen. With this, we have finished making the bets for Friday, October 4th. Let's move on to the bets for the next day. Saturday, October 5th. It's the second day of the preseason. That day there is only one matchup between Golden State and the Clippers. We have decided to apply the method to the Clippers team. According to the instructions of the method, we should bet that the Clippers win the game, which would be our fifth ADAPT. And we should also bet that the over will happen, which would represent our sixth sports bet, professionally managed, applying the three-level method. Let's now record these two plays in the betting and results table model that we are using for this three-level method. Here we have them, Saturday, October 5th. In the ADAPT number 5, we bet that the Clippers will win. And in the ADAPT number 6, we bet that in that same matchup, the over was given. For the next day, Sunday, October 6th, we have 8 bets. In our 7th ADAPT, in the matchup between New York and Charlotte, we're betting on Charlotte to win. In the 8th ADAPT, we bet that the over would occur. In the 9th ADAPT, in the matchup between Washington and Toronto, we're betting on Toronto to win. In the 10th ADAPT, we bet on the under in that same matchup. In the 11th ADAPT, in the game between Milwaukee and Detroit, we're betting on Detroit to win. In that same game, we bet on the over. Then we bet on the Lakers beating Phoenix, and finally, in that same game, we bet on the under. For the next day, on Monday, October 7th, we also have 8 bets. We start with the matchup between Orlando and New Orleans, which represents our ADAPT number 15, where we bet on Orlando to win. In that same matchup, in ADAPT number 16, we bet on the over. Then we bet on Oklahoma City to win, and the under in that same matchup against San Antonio. We continue with ADAPT number 19, where we bet on Dallas to win, and that the over will hit in that same matchup against the Memphis team. Finally, in the game between Houston and Utah, we bet on Houston winning, and that the under will hit. So far, 22 bets have been placed. If you remember in the Day 2 video, I promised you that on Day 3 there would be more than 30. So let's continue. Tuesday, October 8th. For this day, we are also going to make 8 bets. Starting with number 23. In the matchup between Chicago and Cleveland, we're betting that Chicago wins, and in that same matchup, we bet on the over. Subsequently, in the matchup between Miami and Charlotte, we bet that Charlotte wins, and that the under hits in that same matchup. Then in ADAP number 27, we bet on Atlanta. That faces Indiana. And in that same game, we bet that the over will hit. Finally, we bet on Brooklyn facing the Clippers, since the under will hit in that same game. We have reached 30 bets. Let's move on to the next day then. Wednesday, October 9th. In the matchup between Golden State and Sacramento. Let's play that Sacramento wins and that the over will happen. In that same game, it can be observed that we have already surpassed 30 bets. The first represents number 31, and the second represents number 32. Now we just have to wait for the results. MLB, we will be showing the progress of each matchup at the right moment. I sincerely appreciate you joining this challenge that we will carry out every day starting today. We are going to demonstrate together a formula that really works to win. Thank you and see you next time.